pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Let's see, entertain a motion to have a public hearing to amend Bloomfield Code of Ordinance 6501 by adding number 75 Franklin Street vehicles traveling west on Franklin Street shall stop at Madison Street intersection.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Is there any comments from the public on that? Have you received anything written?
No, I haven't.
Unnecessary.
The stop sign's unnecessary? Why is that?
I don't like to stop.
We'll just roll on through.
I probably will.
I don't like to stop either, but I think it's in the
Another one you ought to do away with is down here by the old Ford garage on Franklin. That don't need a four-way stop there unless you're a little feeble-minded or something.
There was hundreds of kids across that street both ways.
What?
I said there was hundreds of kids across that street.
All baloney, they stop from one side, that's enough.
We'll save that discussion for public comments, okay? Move to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Consider approval of first reading of an ordinance to amend the Bloomfield Code of Ordinances 6501 by adding number 75 Franklin Street vehicles traveling west on Franklin Street shall stop at Madison Street intersection.
Move to approve. Second.
Earl,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Consider a motion to waive the second and third readings of an ordinance to amend the Bloomfield Code of Ordinances 65.01 by adding number 75 Franklin Street vehicles traveling west on Franklin Street shall stop at Madison Street intersection.
I'll make a motion to waive the second and third reading. Second.
Scott,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Public comments.
Yes.
Bruce?
I don't know if I would ask this in a question or just a comment on the street and the bridge going past Hastings Meat Market to John Deere on the highway. What is the progress on that? I don't know if that's a comment, a question. Is the council moving along with that project?
We are moving forward with that, I think.
We're talking about the
East Street Bridge and the,
culvert.
yeah,
Received one of the three engineer service agreements for design plans. I have one design plan agreement in, waiting on the other two.
so we're moving forward with it.
How about, will the street be included in it, that 600 or 800 feet?
No, that's just Bridge City culvert, then the second part, you're talking paving junction 2.
Yeah.
That's not.
That's- Right now, we're just working on getting to the culvert, and the culvert, we have discussed possibilities of moving on out. We gotta clarify whose it is and all that. We're moving forward with it.
Thank you.
Ernie?
Last week, you were discussing about things that ordinances that people couldn't do this and this and this. Sounded to me like you might be looking at some ways to abuse this a little. That's my number one comment.
Okay.
Number two, the article or the editorial in the Davis County Democrat or the Bloomfield Democrat comparing this country and our president with Hitler and the Germans, there's a big difference. The people there were trying to get away. People here are trying to get in. If it's so bad, why do they try to get in? And I just wanted to say, there's no way to contact whoever wrote this, but the author ought to be deported, and anybody that would reprint it ought to be deported right with them. Case closed.
Thank you.
You're gonna be talking about Bloomfield Main Street later. I'd just like everybody to remind everybody that over the last 10 years, Bloomfield Main Street has been responsible for $7 million worth of grant money coming into the city, working on the buildings up on the square, doing the upper story, doing the library. A lot of the money came through them. Total involvement with the people of the buildings on the square to that $7 million. The increased value in the buildings, the tax increase, the money spent supporting the construction outfits, the goods and services provided to them, the money why they spent while they were in town, adds up to be over $12 million. So just keep that in mind when you're talking about supporting Bloomfield Main Street.
Thank you.
I'd like to comment.
Okay, Ernie.
For every dollar Main Street made, it probably cost us 2 or 3. I'd like to see the figures. I've asked several times how much actually taxpayers were out for Main Street.
You haven't got an answer?
Never have yet. I thought Howard would have it, but he never did come up with it.
I don't remember you ever asking me.
I asked the whole outfit and you wasn't paying attention. Pay attention to when I talk.
When you make sense, I do, Ernie.
I make sense every time I open my mouth, and that's more than you can say.
That's where you're wrong.
No, I'm not wrong. I haven't been wrong in 60 years.
Bruce, you got something else?
One final thing. I want to tell you what a pleasure it was to work with our new DPW on a situation that was frail. He handled it over the edge. I want to compliment him for that.
Thank you.
Job well done.
Any other public comments? New business. Consider and approve safety training for fiscal year 2019 presentation by Larry Van Wert, IAMU.
Table that. You want to just table that one? Okay.
Table
You want to
that.
bring it back to the next meeting, or do you want to wait just indefinitely? I'm sorry? Indefinitely. Indefinitely, okay.
Consider approval of resolution accepting financial audit for fiscal year 2017. Presentation by Mike Podleska, Anderson, Larkin and Company, PC. I didn't get that right, sorry.
Pretty close. I'm Mike Podleska, I work for Anderson, Larkin and Company. Our office has been doing the audit for the city, I guess 10, 15 years now. The guy who talked about Main Street a minute ago, I was here when Main Street started, so. And I personally have been involved with the audit all of those years. But I've never been to a city council meeting here, so thanks for having me. I'm just gonna real quickly go through the audit. If I get to the point where you think I'm talking too long, just let me know and I'll be on my way. You guys all have a little booklet there. Inside the front cover is a letter that's not connected to the rest of the audit. I'm just gonna real quickly talk about that. 10 years ago or so in the accounting industry, there were some high profile audits that didn't go all so well. You guys are familiar with the term Enron and WorldCom and Tyco. These were big audits that companies paid a lot of money to have auditors come in and look over the books, and it turns out the auditors weren't doing a very good job, and those companies ultimately failed. So one of the things that when the people that tell us how to do audits came up with when they looked at what went wrong was they said that auditors weren't doing a very good job of talking to the people that govern these businesses, or in this case, the city council and the mayor. So that's a very boilerplate letter. Those are some things that I'm required to communicate to you guys. I'll let you read the letter at your leisure, but when you're reading through it, just keep in mind, it's gonna talk about they didn't have that, they don't do that, I didn't see that. Whenever we hear no, 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 that's actually good. So the letter kind of sounds negative because it talks about they don't have that or we didn't do that, but that's actually good, okay? The audit itself, you want to turn to page 2. This is just a letter that talks about what we did, what rules we followed, what was found out. Okay. So the very first paragraph talks about we have audited the accompanying financial statements. Second paragraph says management is responsible. Okay, so management is you guys and the city clerk's office and Gary and all of his people. I help put together the numbers that make up the audit, but the numbers themselves, you guys are responsible for that. Third paragraph talks about our responsibility as an auditor is to express an opinion, and the opinion is not you guys do a great job or you don't do a great job, or the city's super efficient when they build a new road, or they're not very efficient, but just the opinion is when we look at the numbers, that's a fair representation of what actually happened. Here's a picture in a moment in time, and this is what actually happened during that time period. Last paragraph, first sentence, says, in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly, okay? As an auditor, we can give you 3 opinions. We can say the audit presents fairly, it does not present fairly, or it's so bad I can't even tell. So obviously, if we say you present fairly, basically that means when we look at the numbers, that's a good representation of what actually happened, okay? So now I'm on page 6. Okay, so the city itself has 2 different kinds of funds. We have the enterprise funds, which are water, sewer, electric, and gas. You guys provide these goods and services to the people in Bloomfield, and they pay you for that. Those are called enterprise funds. The other kinds of funds are called governmental funds, and that's the stuff that you guys do to keep the city running, okay? So we build a new street, or we have this library available to the public. And so on page 6, we've got just a quick little comparison of the governmental funds. This is the general fund of the city, the public works department, and about a third of the way down the page, I've got a line called total receipts. In fiscal year 2017, that number's 3.5 million compared to 2.9 million the year before. So receipts in the governmental funds went up about $600,000. And the reason your receipts went up is one big thing. This building we're in here, we brought in all these contributions and transfers in from other funds to build the library, and that's why our receipts in the governmental funds went up. A little bit further down the page, we got total disbursements, 4.1 million compared to 2.9 million the year before. One line above total disbursements is capital projects. That's where we spend all the money to build the building that we're standing in. So total receipts are up 600,000, total expenditures are up 1.2 million, and both of those things relate to building the library. Okay. Next, page 7 I'm going to compare these enterprise funds: water, sewer, gas, electric. Okay. Once again, about a third of the way down the page, we have total receipts of $6.1 million compared to 8.7 the year before. Once again, the answer to why did receipts go down is we remember back to fiscal year 16, you guys were finishing up this big giant water project. We borrowed money to do it, and we got grant money to do it. That's why receipts went down in fiscal 17, because we didn't have those things. Further down the page, we got total disbursements, 5.4 million compared to 8.2 before. That's the money we spent to do those water projects. So other than that, painting with very broad strokes, other than building a new library this year and finishing up a water project last year, the years are very simple. And, in my working with cities and counties and schools, other than a capital project, things are the same year after year after year, okay? So, the only other thing I was gonna touch on, I've been an auditor since I got out of school way back when. I think I've been doing this 30 years now. And for most of that time, I've audited local governments, cities and counties and schools. And really, the two things that people want to know about when I do one of these audits, number one is, were they over budget? I think if I remember right, the answer to that question is no, you're not. And number two, did I find anything that didn't look right, kind of smelled fishy? And really, I didn't. On page 43 is the list of comments that I came up with. Once again, a third of the way down the page, we have Roman numeral 2-A-17, and that's segregation of duties, okay? So in the accounting world, the idea is we want to segregate the duties that the accounting staff is in charge of, spread those duties out amongst as many people as we can. So we don't want to have someone collecting cash at the front counter and also being in charge of putting that information into the computer and also maybe being in charge of reconciling the bank statement. It would be possible to slip a 20 in their pocket and hide it on the computer because they're in charge of everything. The problem that we run into with a city your size, and really everywhere I go, is to properly segregate this, you would need an accounting staff of about 25 people. And fiscally, you can't do that. And if I say 25 and that sounds like a lot, let's just go through a little example of, you open up the mail in the morning and there's a check for somebody's water bill in there. I'm sure that happens every single day, okay? So to properly segregate duties, we'd have one person who opens the mail. We'd have a second person who takes those checks and makes a list. We'd have a third person that prepares a deposit slip. We'd have a fourth person that takes that deposit to the bank. We'd have a fifth person that would compare the deposit slip receipt from the bank to the receipt or to the list that the second person made. We'd have a sixth person who would enter that information into the computer. We'd have a seventh person who would reconcile the bank at the end of the month. That's 7 people, and that's just receipts. We haven't paid a bill or had a paycheck yet. So you can see real quickly how to properly segregate this, we need a whole lot of people that we can't afford. So what do you do about it? My recommendation is segregate the duties the best you can. To my knowledge, you guys are doing that, okay? The fact that we've got the council getting ready to approve the bills for payment, that's part of segregation of duties. Who can sign checks?
Gary and Oidy,
Gary and who?
the mayor.
Okay, so we got 2 separate people. So let's say, I always pick on Sandy. Let's say Sandy has this big scheme, she's gonna get some money out of the city somehow and siphon it to this non-existent construction company that she just happens to be the owner of. Well, she's got a big problem if she can't write the check or she can't sign the check to get the money. Okay, once again, that's segregation of duties. So the good news is you guys are, I think you're doing the best you can with the size staff that you have. The bad news is, as long as I keep coming down here, this comment's not going anywhere. We do 50 or 60 audits, and this comment is in 50 or 60 of them.
It's been in every one I've ever read.
Sure, okay. So, you know, the only way you could get rid of it is to hire all those people. That's not gonna happen, so you're set. Okay, something that we've commented on the last couple of audits, and it's either not real high on the priority list or nobody's communicating it to you guys. The city doesn't have a credit card policy. And it might not seem like a big deal, but in my 30 years of doing this, I've seen some fraud. And one of the areas is somebody buying stuff off of Amazon on the city credit card. And the credit card bill that comes in isn't always real good at explaining what it was who bought that, what it was that was purchased. And so if we had a policy that said, okay, there's X amount of city credit cards, and these are the people or positions that are allowed to use these things. At the end of the day, here's where the credit cards are gonna be stored. You know, I'm guessing you guys got a safe somewhere. And, you know, once again, if you're interested, I'll certainly send you down a couple of credit card policies of some of my other audit clients. It's not a big deal until you guys lose half $100,000 because somebody went crazy on Amazon. Page 44. Okay, these are the statutory comments. The Code of Iowa says you gotta do certain things as a city. One of those things is when we get done with the city council meeting, eventually those minutes have to end up in the newspaper. The code says that they need to be published within, 15 days? There were a couple of instances where they did get published, they just got published after 18 days or 20 days. It's not a huge deal, but the code does say 15 days. Usually that's a case of somebody went on vacation or the newspaper didn't do a very good job of getting it in on a timely basis. Roman numeral 3G17, deposits and investments. Once again, the code says if you guys are gonna have some of your money at Success Bank and at the local credit union, you have to have what they call a depository agreement with them. Simple piece of paper. Most likely what happened was the bank changed hands. It used to be Success Bank, used to be Davis County Savings Bank, now it's Success Bank. You don't have a piece of paper with the new name. So it's not a huge deal, but code says you gotta do it. So if I ask for it and you guys don't have it, then it ends up in the audit report. Okay, that's all I've got. I know you guys are looking at these things for the first time. One thing I always tell everybody that I go see at board meetings is part of what you guys pay me for is normal questions and answers. So if you have questions over the course of the year and you think I might be able to help you, give me a call. I'm not gonna, if I can answer it off the top of my head or I can research for 5 minutes and get an answer for you, I'll gladly do that, and it's not gonna cost you anything. If you call and you want me to do 6 hours of research, we'll probably have to talk first, but.
I'm sure we'd appreciate sending some of those credit card policies.
Sure. Any other questions? Okay.
When's this due to the state?
It is due to the state, just so if you on the council were not aware of this, technically the audit's due to the state March 31st. But they will allow you to get an extension, which we did. So it's actually due June 30. And actually Gary gave me all the paperwork the other day, so it is in an envelope ready to go to the state as we speak. Any other questions?
Be nice if we had a little more time to go over some of this stuff and look at it before we had to just have 15 minutes and then approve it. I guess is my comment. Is there a reason why we didn't have it by the 30th of March?
March 31st,
extended it.
I'm asking him.
Well, I gave some direction here in context of the budget. We moved the budget back, we moved the audit back, that's the reason.
Getting tired of having everything thrown at us 5 minutes before it's due, when there's no reason for it. Budget was the same way.
On page 45, Roman numeral 3J-17.
Did you say page 45?
Yeah,
Okay. Yes.
the financial condition there, the EC trails and the library building project.
Okay, so if you're not familiar, and if you are, I apologize, but.
And I didn't want to sound stupid asking.
Okay,
but-
sure. Okay, so for the most part, the city has one checking account. There are multiple accounts, but most of the transactions of the city go in and out of this one checking account. But this one checking account on paper is broken into 25 different pieces. So all of the electric stuff goes in and out of this account. All of the general fund stuff goes in and out of this account. And in the case of these two funds that it says have a deficit balance, what has happened is, and the library is the perfect example. Okay, so we got donations to build this library. Some of the money, it was just people walking in off the street saying, here's some money. Some of it was money that I believe was raised by friends of the library, which they've been accumulating money for several years, I assume, for this very purpose. And so as construction went along, they actually transferred money into the city from a separate checking account. And so all these donations roll in, and as the contractor bills come due, we start writing checks. And what's happened in this case is, I assume the idea all along was we hope to get all this paid for by contributions, but if we don't, the city's willing to pay for the money out of the general fund? I don't know, but that's my guess. And so what's happened here is we paid all the bills to build this thing. We just haven't transferred that money from the general to the library fund to zero out the account. The same thing goes with the trails. So it's more of a bookkeeping thing than it is. It's certainly more of a bookkeeping thing than it is oh my gosh, we don't have enough money. That's not the case at all. But once again, if it's a negative number, then I'm required as an auditor to put it in there as a comment.
So in your opinion, is that something that we should have transferred for the end of the year, or just to get it off the book? I mean, is it good to carry it over?
We could answer this, Chris.
We don't yet have all the funds, Scott.
Okay.
For instance, one of the things that we do to close out the project is get the final invoices paid, turn all of that information into the state, and part of the funding is a grant from the state. That's always the last money in. So we don't really have the final numbers yet we have the final bills, but we don't have the final receipts or the income yet.
And understand too that this audit ends June 30th of last year. So we were in the process of cash flowing these things. The fact that there was a $92,000 deficit for the library is just that cash flow. In fact, library was not counting on the general fund other than the one $300,000 contribution that council made to it at the upfront. So in fact, really what we're talking about here is a project that was in midstream as far as the construction is concerned. The cutoff for this audit was on June 30th. That got later rectified in the fiscal year that we're in right now. And the same thing actually with these trails too.
I'm guessing the trails, there's some sort of grant attached to that. Okay, so that's a good example of that is most of the grants out there say you must spend the money and then you send in the paid invoice to us and we will reimburse you. Well, what happens if we cut the check to spend the money on June 25th, but we don't get reimbursed until July 18th. That's what has happened. You end up with a negative number. Perfectly explainable, but negative nonetheless. Anything else?
Anybody got any more questions on it or discussion? I guess I need to entertain a motion to approve the resolution to accept the audit.
Move to approve accepting the audit.
Any more discussion?
John,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Consider approval of resolution fixing the date for a public hearing on the proposal to enter into a development agreement with Dow Real Estate LLC and Convenience Subs Incorporated.
We have an agreement with Bob Dow, the owner here, on a TIF project, or a TIF funding of the subway. This is a far reduced incentive, given the nature of the project. It maxes out at $50,000. Actually, that assumes that the $50,000 we've reached. If there was some reasonable increases, maybe even more than reasonable increases in assessed valuations. But the fact of the matter is that this is a 7-year deal, staged down 85% in each of the first 2 years of the increment. The next 3 years at 65%, the last 2 years at 35%. And this 65% is less than what we have done in the past. And in fact, the 7-year span is less than the typical 10 years that we've done in the past. Our estimates, if there isn't much change in assessed valuation, is that about $42,000 rebated as far as the increment is concerned over the next 7 years. This project was initiated before I even came here. Just was in this project.
This was initiated after they already built the new subway.
They asked for the money before the subway started, but in the transition of my hiring and a lot of other things going on all at the same time, this is one that just kind of fell by the way. It wasn't really pressed hard because the increment wouldn't be established and payments wouldn't be made until fiscal year 1920, at the end of fiscal year 1920. So that's why this was not a hot item to get done. They were asking for whatever we felt was reasonable. We typically were doing 75% over 10 years. In fact, we've done some that were 100% over 10 years as far as a rebate of increment. This one was a small project, a small employment gain. The increase in sales taxes on this is about 10% more than what we were with them at the other place. So that's why this incentive actually was negotiated at a very low rate comparatively.
Set the public hearing for the next council meeting on the 5th. Make a motion, set the public hearing at the July 5th council meeting.
Any more discussion?
Darren,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Consider approval of resolution supporting Bloomfield Main Street.
Move to approve the resolution.
Second.
John,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Consider approved selection of engineer for the wastewater system improvements.
As you know, we sent out an RFQ. We had 4 firms that responded to that RFQ. And we had a score sheet that the firms were aware of when we were responding to the RFQ. The DPW, Jeremy, myself, and Gary all scored the responses. And then we were unanimous in our selection of the top 3 firms. We then interviewed those 3 firms on week ago Monday. No, it was this Monday. Interviewed those 3 firms, and it confirmed that we all had agreed, or we'd all selected HR Green to be our top pick through the scoring. And when we went through the interview process, we came to that conclusion as well. So what we're requesting is that we're recommending that we move forward with HR Green towards contract negotiations to do the wastewater facility planning and design. And I have if anybody wants to look them over, they're not all scanned, but they're all available to review the responses if you'd like to look them.
Was there a cost estimate part of this?
It wasn't, so that'll be part of the, that'll be in the contract negotiation, will be the cost estimate, which is typical for this type of thing. The engineering fees are a relatively small portion of the overall cost, but we did have some discussion about costs with each of the firms. And through the discussion have a sense that this firm would probably result in an overall lower cost because of their approach. Of course, there's no guarantee of that, but that was what we all felt through the discussion process and interview process.
One of the things that stuck out with HR Green was the other 2 firms felt that for disinfecting, we needed to use a UV process or some chemical process to do disinfection. Green seemed to think that a decision about UV is something that could be curtailed for a long time, 10 years or 15 years, to see if the other things that we're doing would help with disinfection. They also are very intricately involved in the rule writing for dealing with wastewater treatment systems at the state level. And they feel that not only do they have the ability to look at the rules and give input to the rules, which are currently being drafted, an update that's being drafted right now, but they also feel that their work with the DNR regarding our processing would suggest that we might not even need UV at all. In fact, they feel relatively confident that as time passes, we probably would not have a UV process, a disinfecting process installed into our system. That would save $200,000 to $300,000. The other firms that we were talking with effectively felt that UV was a given. They were not as much involved by their presentations that we talked with them. They're certainly not as involved with the state in dealing with these kinds of things. And for that matter, Green's presentation also was convincing from this perspective. The others felt that we probably wouldn't have to, we probably have to utilize the entire set, or the entire lagoon system in some context. And that there really wasn't much room for us to grow, not that we had an expectation of real growth. Green said that we might be able to cut the size of our lagoon system with some upgrades and updates that we need to do anyway. But cut the lagoon system initially by the utilization of it by as much as 35–40%. So going with them also recognizes if a growth circumstance occurs, from their perspective, in the design features, you would have the ability to absorb some significant growth if the opportunity presents itself. Particularly interesting, not from the standpoint of population growth, but if there's just one wet industry that comes in, that very well could set the tone for us by saying we have the ability to handle that. I think that that's an important feature. And I think it also speaks to Green's experience in dealing with these things, not just from the standpoint of their knowledge about this, but also their sensitivities to what might be in the future. Their approach seemed to be a little bit more holistic in thinking as opposed to just focusing on the task. So I think those are the things that really stood out for us. It was a close call when we did the interview. It was something that we would have been confident with the second place one as far as them being able to execute and do the project, but I think the approach that they were giving us was kind of cookie cutter as opposed to really looking at what we got going on and what can and could be done. And that's why I think we felt really confident with Green. We would be dealing with Green out of Des Moines, right?
Cedar Rapids.
It is Cedar Rapids. I know that there was somebody from Des Moines there, but the Cedar Rapids office is they got offices all over the place. The Cedar Rapids office is the one that servicing us, so it's not that long. The other firms that we interviewed were all Iowa firms, although one was also in Illinois. In fact, we probably would have seen staff from both Iowa and Illinois on that project, but nearby, like across the state, was one city. So they all these firms were relatively local to our area.
We feel confident that we'd be able to hit our benchmarks timeframe wise.
We asked them very specifically, and they said yes, should not be a problem. Our project is not that complicated, and when we're taking a look at utilizing the integrated approach, which means that we'll be looking at doing some of the plant work and some of the collection system work. The real issue that's going to come out here, that decisions will have to be made, is how do you want to address the collection system? Is there, do you really want to pound on the idea of disconnection of sump pumps, for instance? It begs the question, and Green talked about this, disconnect sump pumps, what do you do with the stormwater? And they looked at this not just from a stormwater perspective, not from a standpoint of getting 100% compliance. Maybe there's quote unquote low hanging fruit that you could do to make the collection system far more efficient from the standpoint of maybe lining your lift station pits or other things as far as your sewer manholes and that. There might be a lot of infiltration there. The issue actually raised a larger point, and that is one thing that Green raised that nobody else did, and this shows the extent of their thinking about this. We do not service, technically, we do not provide service or anything from the street to the house, or for that matter, inside the house. Although on several occasions, we have been on site to give assistance or at least advice to homeowners that are trying to figure out why they're having a sewer problem. Although realistically, it's not in our purview. Green said that maybe one of the ways to address your I&I, your infiltration issue, is effectively say to the property owners, we'll take over the area between your house and the street. But it'll come at a surcharge, of course. The idea being is that, if there's a bad sewer, we would wind up taking care of that because of the I&I gets corrected. We're not there yet, but it's at least worthy of a discussion to find out whether in fact you want to go that way. Absent that, I mean, the whole idea is with I&I, how do you correct it if you want to correct it? You can correct it by the lagoons. It will cost everybody the same amount of money. You can correct the I&I problem by putting a surcharge on everybody at the house, but recognize that this is something that all of a sudden they would no longer have the responsibility for. Those are the kinds of things that we had some discussion about both with Green and amongst ourselves afterwards. And I think those are the kind of issues that are going to be presented to you for consideration in the upcoming years.
I have a motion to,
Move to approve the selection of Green, what did you say?
HR Green.
HR Green for engineering on the wastewater system.
Second.
any more discussion?
Scott?
Yes.
Jack? Yes. John?
Yes.
Earl?
Yes.
Darren?
Yes. Consider setting public hearing to amend Bloomfield Code of Ordinances 69.0845 parking on Locust Street between Columbia and Davis Streets.
What we're trying to do is split parking from one side to the other.
We're gonna have no parking at all. Is that right, Chris?
Correct.
No parking at all
On Columbia for one block.
Yeah, Locust for this block.
I've got to ask, what is it that we use as criteria to decide whether or not we're going to be able to park? Is it the width of the street? Is it how many cars are parked on the street generally, or what's?
So, there are two things happening with this particular section of the street. On the north side of the street, it's, with the business there, it's been a congestion problem for traffic coming in and out of the parking lot, and it's caused, it's just been a trouble spot. When you look at the, south side of the street where there currently isn't parking, one of the reasons is because we've got a number of driveways there, and by the time you get the setbacks from the driveways, then you just really don't have much space to do it, so.
I just, the reason I'm asking is because we have lots of places where you're driving down the road and it's like, am I gonna fit between these?
Right.
With one vehicle traveling through, and so I don't know if there's a comprehensive plan to look at that, but if we're gonna do it case by case every week, somebody's gonna have an issue with, seems narrow right here.
Right, so in this case, it's a commercial district. We think of it as a residential neighborhood, but it's actually a commercial district, in that area. And so that was, one of the criteria. It's in a commercial district that hadn't been heavily used for some time, and now it is, and then with the expansion of the library, it's just made it even more so. We are beginning, really, that's Danny's side of the thing when we start talking about a comprehensive review, and I think we're headed there, but, there were just a couple of trouble spots that we were looking at.
I had a resident bring up to me, the fact that, well, if you had a big funeral at Wagler's, then nobody'd be able to park on this street and be available for that. If you had a big wedding at Christian Church, they would be parking here. So I think those are things to think about as well.
Weddings and funerals, depending on time of day, a lot of weddings, of course.
True.
It's not open. A lot of the overflow parks in our parking.
Okay, well, as long as they know they can do that, I guess.
And as long as,
Thank you.
it's a pick your spot on a business day, as far as where it is. And I don't think if there's a funeral or a wedding and if they got I don't imagine they're gonna write tickets. We've had no parking down by the elementary school for 5 years and ain't nobody got a ticket. And they line up on both sides of the street. I guess I don't think that, I see where you're coming from as far as that goes. Sundays work, we've had a lot of overflow. There's big events going on and it's not an issue.
Okay.
For that reason, as far as.
Is nighttime parking an issue?
Actually, there is some parking on the street of an evening once in a while. There's maybe one or two cars down a little
So
bit.
we may want to think about just making it between certain hours or something. But we can talk about that at the hearing.
Right.
All good, valid points. Got a date in mind? Next meeting, June 5th or July 5th. Whoever makes the motion.
I'll move to make the public hearing on July the 5th, following the other public hearing.
Jack,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Consider setting public hearing to amend Bloomfield Code of Ordinance 69.08 by adding number 48, no parking on the east side of Washington Street between Weaver Road and Arkansas Avenue. A little street that goes from Chris's house down to the flower shop. Short section of Washington Street. They do.
Yeah.
Can we add that they park the same direction as the flow of traffic?
Because that's already in our ordinances.
It just kills me. You're parked the wrong direction.
And it's the guy that knows better. Need a motion to
I'll make
set
a
the
motion to
public
set a
hearing.
public hearing.
Thank
for July 5th.
you.
Yep.
Yeah, you're not gonna be here. Need a second?
Got it.
Second.
Earl,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Consider approval of pay estimate number 2, final to Cole Construction for DC Trails.
There's 3 items here that that are related to the same project. If you haven't been down to the south end of Parkview Street, there's been a lot of progress down there in the last 2 months. And this first item is for the second pay estimate, which is actually the final pay estimate. They did almost the entire project in the month of May. And then there will be a retainage pay estimate, and then the final item on your agenda is for accepting the project. I reviewed the project along with Danny and Chris, and the Trails Council was present as well on June 1st, and everything is looking good. Cole did a good job with the project. One thing to mention is there is a warranty on this project. Assuming you accept the project tonight, that starts the 2-year warranty period. And we'd be glad to come down and check things out in 2 years to see how things are looking. So.
Move to approve the pay estimate number 2.
Second.
Scott,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Darren,
Consider the approval of pay estimate number 3, retainage to Cole Construction for DC Trails project.
Move to approve pay estimate number 3.
Second.
Earl,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Consider approval of pay estimate number 3, consider a resolution to close out and accept the Davis County Trails project.
Move to approve the resolution to close out and accept the Davis County Trails project.
Second.
Scott,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes. Approved purchase of replacement gas meters for the AMI project.
Could we go on to one and back? I thought it was in your packets, and I want to make sure I have the numbers for you that I thought were in there.
Approved fire department purchase of turnout gear from Lion Apparel in the amount of $31,737.81.
Some of you may have known, this has been about a 27th month adventure that's been uphills and downhills. Promises have been made, promises have not been kept. And at the end of the day, we thought we were getting our gear about 3 months ago, and this line forgot to let us know they terminated the lady that was doing our gear. So we had to start all over again. So I've been working with the vice president and the president of the company only. No salesperson are involved in this. They're trying to get this resolved. They've got a bad name in southern Iowa. In fact, they got a bad name in Iowa right now, period. Because everybody knows about this little ordeal. Right now, we can get all 17 firemen fitted for that dollar amount. It has been discounted $10,000 for the 5 sets of turnout gear that were lost in the beginning, that FedEx lost for us. So that's our bottom dollar. I am gonna ask them to suck up the freight and their vice president to be here the day that stuff arrives so that he sees that it fits or it doesn't fit, and they're on the hook for it. That's the best I can do. Right now, we're sitting with gear that's, some of the gear's falling off of the guys. We've got to do something. I've visited with Gary and John and Earl. He's known about this. The 30,000, 2 years ago, I budgeted 10,000. I asked the city council to move it back till we got this resolved. Well, I had 10,000 budgeted for this year. I got 10 budgeted for next year. So I'm asking for the money so that we can get this gear on these guys and move forward.
You're satisfied with this deal?
Yeah. I don't have any other choice right now. I mean, they're not happy, but right now they can't sell us liquor turnout gear in the state of Iowa.
What will happen here is that we'll actually deficit spend this particular line item, but with the recognition that next year's $10,000 is actually going to be a surplus, so.
So next year's audit, it'll show up in next year's audit.
Well, actually, in this particular case, what it'll be is it's a budgetary thing, it's not a contractual.
This is supposed to be a 45-day turnaround, so according to their promises, again, we go to the top of the list, we're supposed to get our gear in 45 to 50 days. That's as fast as they can turn it around.
They don't have any competition?
Huh?
They don't have any competition?
Yeah, they're running overtime down in Kentucky where they build this stuff. But we've always had Lion. We've been working with Lion. They're the ones that stepped up to the plate. They wanted to make this right from the get-go. And at one time we were sitting where we thought we were going to get this all free. But I guess that was a promise that shouldn't have been made because it cost her job.
We still got a pretty good discount though on all the turnout.
It was normally $2,600 a set, and they've discounted it down to $1,800.
I would make a motion that we approve this purchase.
Second that. Pending Jeff's approval when he comes here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely.
He'll be inspected before we run it.
Oh, yeah. Names will be spelled right, gear will fit.
That's just no.
You like to amend the motion by adding that?
Yes. I'd like to amend the motion to improve, or include Jeff's approval.
Second year when it arrives. Second, amendment.
Thank you.
Darren,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Now we have to
Now
vote.
we gotta have a motion with the amendment added to it.
Move to approve the purchase with the added amendment.
Second.
Darren,
Yes.
Jack.
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Approved purchase of replacement gas meters for the AMI project.
So we did the water and electric last time. I apologize for the quote not being in your packets. Thought I had it in there. So it's $154,044. And again, this would be a budgetary number, the maximum. We wouldn't go over that without coming back to you for additional, funds. That puts smart points on all our, makes all the gas meters automatic read along with the water and electric.
Was the install of that included in the install of the other stuff?
It is.
So we did that. So all we're doing is just buying the parts to make the meters compatible with the rest of them.
That's it.
Move to approve the purchase of the replacement gas meters for the AMI project.
Second.
Scott,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Consider approval of mayor's appointment of a committee to evaluate hiring procedures at the police department. I would like to appoint Earl and Scott.
Move to approve.
Second.
Hey,
Your turn.
I didn't want to second one.
Knock your iPad out of you.
Earl,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
John,
Yes. Consider and discuss bills for girls' Little League.
So, the sample's on your, in their packet, so we just need to approve that. We're gonna pull that out of the hotel fund.
Right. That was, I guess, a recommendation that they had an electrical box burned up. The city guys went out and fixed part of it, and then they had Huggins come out and fix some other of it. They asked for money. We didn't give any when we had it. We got some motel money left, and so I recommend that we pay that, our portion and their portion out of the hotel motel tax.
Move to approve.
Second.
Scott,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Darren,
Set date for special meeting for city administrator evaluation and discussion of long-term and short-term girl goals. I was thinking maybe do that at a meeting other than a council meeting because it's gonna take a while. Does anybody have a time that don't work? I mean, does next Thursday work?
Next Thursday doesn't for me.
Okay.
From the first to the ninth of July.
So next week, anytime?
Other than Thursday for Gary.
Monday.
Tuesday the 26th.
Anybody here Tuesday?
I'm out of town through Wednesday.
Okay.
Well, I mean, yeah.
No, I understand.
We're gonna give me a birthday present on Tuesday.
I mean, how far do we wanna back it up?
We have to, I suppose.
So do we want to move it to the second week of July? Like on that Thursday night? Thursday night just kind of works.
Well, that's Thursday's our, the 5th is our council meeting.
The second week, like the 12th.
12th. Okay, that worked for me.
That's fine. That works for everybody.
Same time or?
The fair is the 17th through the 21st. Do you want us to do it at 7? Do you want to start it at 6?
Let's stick with 7.
So we just need a motion to set the date for that meeting.
That we set that special meeting to work on evaluation and discussing short-term, long-term goals. July the 12th at 7 PM.
Second.
Here in this room, if at all possible.
You probably will do this in close.
We will do, there will be 2 closed.
Yeah, so there'll be some in there, and you start out here.
We'll start here and we'll do 2 closed and then we'll have a short term and long. Or if we want to reverse it, do the short term and long term first. If people want to be here, then they can go and then we can do the 2 closed after that, however. Second.
Jack,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Jack? No.
Yes.
Scott, Darren,
Yes. Discussion regarding engineering services for Courthouse Square Street sidewalk construction.
I have talked, the direction was given to find out some quotes as to what kind of cost we would have for engineering services that, for lack of a better term, give a second opinion. I received requests back or quotes back from 2 firms looking for actually a third one to respond. Both are in the $4,000 to $5,000 range based upon whether we cut down the scope of services. I think that the real question here is that all you want out of this? And it may very well be a two-phase circumstance where if in fact you have an evaluation and a determination of what can and can't be done based upon a review of the existing big tabs and designs, that gets you the $4,000 to $5,000 as well as perhaps some pro and con discussion. If you want to go farther than that, in other words, to facilitate the idea of trying to assist a committee with coming up with design work, then obviously that would be another level. I think at this point in time, the question is, I mean, I could do the $4,000 to $5,000 under my own signature, but I prefer not to because I think it would be appropriate for the council to understand that this could be a contract that would extend beyond my scope. And as a result, I think that we need to have an understanding here as to what you want to get out of this. If you want to just have an evaluation and they're done, then I can put their other contract for the council's consideration. But if you want to go farther than that, I don't know whether you want more input on that or whether you want to defer that decision until after you've received the information.
What's the planning and zoning have to do? They have to do anything before we can do anything?
Not at this level. I mean, if you were to put together your committee, I would suggest that you have 1 or 2 members from your P&Z on it. But what they have to do is that when you have a major street project of this nature, where the public hearing function of the planning commission would occur would be at a time when they're actually reviewing the plans prior to going to bid.
So they would be the first step of approval of the project.
Exactly, if you were to change the project. And I think that that's the kind of thing that you would probably see not on reconstructions, I understand, but when you're talking about changing the character of the courthouse square, that's where it would come in. It has two things, two reasons for that. One is that you still have that historic district nature here, which they are statutorily responsible to weigh in on. And secondly, if you truly are just reconfiguring, even if it wasn't a historic district, but you're really changing the character, then they likewise have that responsibility by state statute. But it won't be up front. I know that right now, we're still trying to get a handle on what can or may be considered. And what can be done, what may be considered, what kind of deficiencies that we have in the existing plan, that kind of thing. So right now, it's more, I think, along your lines of what you want the committee to do. This would probably establish the framework for which a design team, a design committee could be established. But first things first, gotta find out what you got that's adaptive, what you may want to do. Probably some discussion about the financing. But I think whatever project that you do now, without the grant money, it's gonna have to be obviously less money. If you want to maintain some tip money to do for housing. So those are the kinds of things that I think the council has to discuss likewise here. And maybe some of this stuff will evolve out of these discussions in the next, I'd say, 4 to 6 weeks. Because ultimately, there has to be a real plan here as to how you want to use TIF. The plan is to what you want to do for capital improvement related to housing and the like. This kind of folds into the CIP discussion likewise. Do you want to bond outside of TIF for street projects? We have one that we have bonded for, we're paying on right now. You have the capability of doing that too, without the TIF money. But the issue in that particular case is that you also have a limit as to how much you can borrow. Your CIP issue that you can see here is not so much projects that you want to do, but the timing of it vis-a-vis what you have for project capability. So this kind of starts a bunch of dominoes falling.
You said you're still waiting on a reply from one.
Yeah, I think it's because I got a vacation. Candidly, who I'm asking, 3 people, the 3 firms that they all have capability. I could go farther, but I think for what we're talking about on the initial phase, it's not that complicated. It's just a second opinion, as both of the ones I talked to, I referred to as having a second opinion on what you have on the shelf right now.
What do we?
I need direction as to whether you want me to go and actually put together contracts.
Yes.
And I need a motion.
Move to proceed the engineering services.
I'll give you one for the next meeting. We'll have a contract.
Got a second?
Voice vote is all I need for this.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved claims as presented.
Ready what? Speak to what that thing was for.
What's the Pepsi bottling concession, several hundred and some dollars.
Yeah, that's the
Is all of it for the pool? Answer that one pretty quick, so.
Move to approve claims.
Second. What was the wooden door with the push bar for?
who's the vendor?
The cabinet, Amish cabinet guy. T corner.
Red oak door and push bar opener.
He was what he was working on here, Chris?
I don't know on the,
Probably something like.
Right below it. Library cat.
Oak door for library cat grant, and it says oak door and push bar opener. Did they put two doors in?
I know that there was one up at the top of the stairs. I haven't been up there to see if it's in. I don't know if that's it.
On the claims from the library, that the library sent had a door and an installation.
Which makes sense. Well, there would be two places that we would have doors. One is on the mechanical room on the very corner. And the other one would have been at the top of the stairs. There was supposed to be a door place. Those weren't in the original construction contract, so I wasn't involved with getting those put in, so I don't know who did it but I can go verify that they're there.
They put a wooden door on the mechanical room.
Let me go look. I'll get the answer.
And I think there was a fireplace or something on there. Rebuilding rail on chimney.
Just as a FYI, two things. This is the last bills for this fiscal year, so we're closing the fiscal year as of tonight. The other thing is that we have to get everything, the library's request for expenditures have to be complete tonight too, so that the final for the CAT grant can be requested, because there's a June 30 deadline on that too.
Either of those doors are there, so I don't know what these doors are on the claims list.
Is it something that they may have purchased that just hasn't been installed, Chris?
I just got a message from Butch Brewster, says door with push bar is upstairs, wooden door is for mechanical room, but those doors aren't there.
We're probably just waiting before they close out again.
So the installation price included in that?
I don't know, again, I didn't order those. Yes, this is the text.
Hi, Butch.
Thanks, Butch. I love this virtual company.
That's pretty fast for California.
I think he's here.
Any more discussion on the claims? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public comments, any more public comments? Bruce?
I think it's pretty neat. Butch is sitting at home watching tonight live telecast.
I think Butch gotta be able to watch Butch.
No thanks.
The other thing I wanted to ask the city council to do, I think it's pretty amazing, the solar field out here. And that thing, if it's ever gonna produce, the last 2 weeks at 90 and 100, that meter ought to be selling a lot of electricity to Bloomfield. I think that they need to put how much the city is buying, how much it's saving. I don't know if it's kilowatts they measure that are sold to the city, but there's a lot of interest in that now that the National Guard has flattened that hill out. You drive by and you see that solar field, and I hear people all the time going, wow, that thing is huge. You couldn't see it before. I think the city ought to step up the interest. It's a real positive thing to see that out there. But what is it saving? What is it making the city? You know, you guys, it's my understanding that 2 cents a kilowatt, is that kind of, it's cheaper than we're paying REC.
Right.
So it's giving the city a little more profit to do
Projects.
any projects.
Oh, and it's local money too.
It's local money.
It's a little more complicated than that, but yeah, it's on a simple basis, that's kind of where it's at.
It's neat. You drive by there, the National Guard worked there hard. Holy smoke, they moved a lot of dirt.
I don't know if we can probably have a really accurate anything till probably August or September on that, but we can work on getting something put together.
We do have, some web monitoring that we can go in and look real time and see what's going on, but I don't yet have a public piece for that, so we're working on getting that in place.
Can we talk about at some point, maybe some kind of informational sign over there that gives some detail, because people are gonna be driving by and they can showcase some information, we can talk about that at some point.
Or once a month, send it to the newspaper for them to publish that this is how many kilowatts it generated.
Hey, whatever you guys wanna do, we'll.
So that people would know.
But we really can't do anything till the contract and everything's final, so we know what our bottom numbers are.
Sure.
Right? And that's gonna be probably, I'd say September, probably push the limit on being able to get 30 days worth of accurate data.
Okay.
Good evening, sir. My last discussion on this issue was with previous mayor, so I apologize for not bringing you in
Can
earlier.
you state your name, please?
Pat Bocorny. The property at 209 Northeast Street, across the street from the daycare center. I asked the mayor about that, the previous mayor about that, last time I saw him, and he said that I believe it was Iowa State University was doing a study of all the empty houses, vacant houses here, and they were gonna prioritize what they were, worst to best kind of thing. I'm wondering where we were with that project, and if we have a status on that. That property has been vacant for probably at least 6 to 8 years. Feral cats running in and out. The other day I saw a mama coon taking a baby coon down, windows are busted out. Fellow that was cutting the grass over there noticed a big window broken out in the back. He was hesitant to go in, called the police department. They showed up, they went in and inspected. They think probably somebody had broken, their suspicion was somebody broken in to steal copper. It's just kind of an eyesore. I think it's a possible hazard to the kids that are up there. I mean, all of them.
But they did mow the grass.
They have mowed the grass a couple of times.
I think that property is one of the top 4 on our list that we're in the process of getting legal help to take care of the nuisance, the derelict housing and abandonment stuff. I think that was one of the main ones that's at the top of the list. It's a process.
Okay.
And we've been slow getting it started, but we got it started now. So it's just
It may very well wind up as condemnation.
Okay. I'm not an expert in it, but I don't believe it's inhabitable.
You interested in buying?
What's it worth?
Who owns it?
Susan Bocorny.
He lives in Arizona. And then I got a letter in the mail that was addressed to him in Arizona, and it came to my mailbox in Bloomfield, Iowa. The letter was from the tax department in Van Buren County. because he also owned the 25-acre plot down that way.
And he thinks he's worth a
They
lot of money.
wouldn't fill out Arizona, I didn't know.
I'm Susan Bookharney, and also, I don't know if anybody's noticed or if it's ever been brought to anybody's attention, but the speeding in front of the daycare, and that's where it comes down as a dip, people fly on that street. It's dangerous, there's a lot of children. I don't know if it needs a speed bump down the bottom of it.
Not a fan of speed bumps. I think we might just patrol that a little bit, slow it down that way, but
But it's bad.
speed bumps are, that's a pretty heavy traveled road. Speed bump would be a real nuisance there, but I know what you're talking about. I live in that area myself.
They fly, just fly down that hill.
We'll address that with the police department. Any other, Ernie?
On line G over here, talking about putting up no parking signs on North Washington. What's the status on that? I couldn't hear you too good.
At the next meeting, we're gonna have the public hearing and approve the ordinance and then get the signs put up. So they should be up. I'm assuming that we'll approve, and if it gets approved, the signs will be put up within a week or two after that. So by the middle of July, hopefully that's taken care of.
This is awful. It was an awful mess up there the other evening. Some dummy parked there with the trailer behind his pickup and another dummy right across from him. And most people were turning around and not trying it. But I thought it'd be kind of fun. I don't think there was 4 inches on each side. And I was wishing for my old work truck. I'd have taught them people what happens when they do dumb things like that. But really, is it that big a deal? It looks like this man over here, the money we're paying him, could get that done first thing in the morning.
Well, the problem is he can't do that. It requires all of us, and we have procedures we gotta go by that the state of Iowa requires us to do to take care of it.
We won't tell them, break all them.
We broke enough of them. We're trying to get away from that problem.
And another deal is I think the public ought to be in on the valuation of these city employees. Cost us a lot of money, the taxpayers.
We discussed that, and it would cost us a lot of money to do that.
Why so? I won't charge you nothing.
If you don't like the results of what happens, you'll have to take care of that at the election of the city officials that make that.
Well, we elect a man here and he's already double crossed us. I think it's time for him to resign. He's laughing. I don't see anything to laugh about.
Take my spot.
When you laugh and there's nothing to laugh at, that's a sign of insanity.
I'm not laughing, Ernie.
What'd you say?
I'm not laughing,
No.
but you're laughing.
Well, I'm laughing because Earl looks so funny.
Thank you, thank you.
We're getting all kinds of compliments.
Well,
Does anybody else have any?
Oh, I've got one more thing. These 2 steps out here. I asked my old buddy Chris to put a handrail up there. I allowed it to be up there for this week. That's dangerous for an old man 90 years old. Those 2 steps. Fact is, I think if I get any more people, I'm gonna demand somebody, if you don't put up a handrail, I'm gonna demand somebody to be out there and help me up them steps.
We can bring a dolly.
Huh?
We'll get a dolly.
I did talk to somebody and they said that was in process, so.
What?
I did talk to somebody at the library and they said that was in process, but, I've been gone, I haven't checked, where they are with it.
Well, you're a man of action. Get it done. Cut all the red tape.
Is there any other public comments? Gary?
Just one thing, now that got the major portion of the reorganization about done, the close of hiring 2 positions that we received the resumes and then closed off at noon today. One of the things that we're seeing as far as an organizational issue is how we deploy Robbie, our parks guy, because Robbie, and for that matter, Taylor, is dealing with 3 different agencies having to respond to them. And we're gonna sit down on Monday just to have a kind of an understanding about what's going on, who's doing what. It may very well require a reevaluation of who has responsibilities here, because there's so much of this is disparate. I don't know what will come out of our discussion, but we're at least doing this from a staff level at this point. But I would expect that we probably will give you a report, maybe even recommendations as to what we can do to try and alleviate all of these different organizations trying to manage effectively 2 people. And on top of the things that Taylor has to deal with, we also have a union contract for Robbie, and Robbie technically is Danny's responsibility, and it's, anyway, we're gonna be working on that, try to figure out what.
I think that's something that needs to be a little more clear.
Yeah, I think we all do. Otherwise, Hairy Nation Days, it's coming up this weekend. Hope the weather's good.
Danny?
That's a few notes. Just today, we received the DNR construction permit for the southeast street water main replacement that we broke a while back. So, and of course, there's timing's everything. So now we're getting into the rodeo and the fair time. So of course that would disrupt the water services over in the South Fork and that hotel area. So we're gonna have to wait until probably fair time's over before we do that. So it would take probably about, due to water sampling and all that, it'd take about 6-7 days to disruption of water. So we're gonna hold that for now. Our sewer camera's inoperable right now. The 750-foot video cable that's on there is damaged, and we're in the process. We've got to do a sole source repair, just FYI, and repair estimate's about $8,200 for that. We're gonna get that taken care of.
Just to give you context about that. It's not within my purview as far as 7,500, but it is within my purview as far as an emergency repair, given the fact that it's sole source. Unless you guys want to have this as an agenda item, I'm going to go forward and do this. So if you hold your tongue, then we're going to go on and do this, because we got to do it.
I've got the invoices in your stuff there.
Yes.
Yeah.
How was it damaged? How was it damaged?
Just, I don't know, we bought that used, I think, that van, so that's before me, so, so we bought that van used, and actually at the end, Jeremy, we just was using it over on one of the streets there towards the end, about the foot in from the head, he actually pinched it going into a hole. So we sent it up there to fix that part, but when they go to fix it, they examine the whole continuity test and everything, there's actually more splices inside there way back in, it's really, it just needs a little bit, but we can fix the one end, but then it could be just.
Be right back again.
And it's about $500 in labor to do any of that work, so it's all, all or nothing. So, and plus I think we're gonna use this a lot in this upcoming project, so where we might be able to defray some of these costs into that project, so this 82 might get wrapped up into the project cost, which might be okay on that. So, another thing's always set up a Gov Deals online government surplus auction account. So we have some stuff to sell, and we can actually follow. There's over 200 cities in Iowa, the one that's on the state of Iowa account for that. So we know we got some stuff, some surplus stuff. So for example, that truck that's out there we want to sell and stuff. So this is a good revenue generating process, plus a way to get rid of excess, and actually in a way too, like if you have 10 good chairs, 2 broken chairs. You can actually get rid of all 12 chairs just by auction, even if it's $5. Now we don't have to pay the disposal fee of other stuff too. So there's a way to do that with a lot of stuff. We can set reserves for it. And I can also set the date where it ends before council meetings. If something we sell needs council approval, I can put on there, sale pending subject to council approval. It doesn't cost us anything. The fees for the sale fee actually is passed on to the bidder. And then actually being part of the state contract, also at the end of the year, every August, like August 19th, the date coming up this year, we had a 1.4% rebate too on top of that for the sales we get. So we get a check in September for that too. So I know there's a lot of stuff there, there's some obsolete stuff we have and some things. Because I've actually been, several people have been trying to get hold of us to buy stuff, because I guess in the routine there's been a lot of, in the past, people just buy stuff and do things around here. So this is more transparency. It's just like eBay, anybody can register to be a bidder. So we can put those things out there where we can throw them on the bottom of our bills and say, hey, these things are going out for auction, just FYI, you want to bid or whatever, and then they can do that and sign up and buy it. So
We would still have to identify the equipment.
Right.
To the council. The council would have to approve it, but this would be the vehicle for which we do it.
And then, Gas had their annual, gas distribution and energy management program on review today. We've had some issues, some things you're gonna need to take care of for a corrective action plan. Just like there needs to be some dollars around some meters around town, or some training that, some of our staff need to have, that kind of stuff. So we got a plan for that, gonna fix that. That's just an annual requirement we have to meet. We did a lot of streets work on gutters and cleaning for the past couple of weeks and stuff. Working in preparation for Hairy Nation Weekend, of course, and doing some electrical prep for the state, county fair. We're gonna be probably having some poles out there, moving some lines around, so just trying to help it. And that's actually some training for one of our, employees needs some actually lineman training, so he has to meet those hours for apprenticeship and all that stuff, so we're gonna use that as a training opportunity. Also, currently have a backup generator that's not starting an automotive at the water plant, so right now, just FYI, it's, we're getting a whole generator dealer, which is hard to look at. Don Huggins already looked at it, and it's beyond his scope, we gotta get some other outside repair in. Brush hogs under repair, our gas detector, this remote thing we have, needs some repair, it's actually been sent down to Texas. And we received our engineer service agreement for the water and sewer project, the community development block grant. And our next phase is meet with Area 15, which should be next week to start that. So we'll submit that grant. I think October is going to be the grant submission date. We're going to submit for that. So that'll be it. And we already talked about East Street Bridge culvert, received one of the three requested from three different engineer firms. We've received one back so far. Just another note for all public and everybody else too, is Monday, July 2nd, we start a new contract hour. So all the employees will start at 6:30 and be off at 3. So the JFX launch and all that kind of stuff too. So make sure operating hours change.
That's public works employees.
Public works employees.
So instead of having an hour off for lunch, they're gonna have a half hour off. Stay out of the heat.
And just one thing for the council, I had a couple of council members talk about some future stuff, and I did look into the septic system out of Lake Fisher. We're allowed to do that as long as the intake is less than 50 feet from the lake. And it costs about $10,000 for the septic system for basically like a shower house over on the west side of the lake. And actually, if anybody gets around in Centerville, over at what's called Leah Bradley Park, they just put in a new one there. It's kind of a small one, so if you want to take a look at one of those, it'd be kind of comparison to what they may be doing out there on the west side. So food for thought. I know some have in their goals.
Go ahead. What's everybody want to do with this? Just let it go ahead and take care of it.
Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah, just a couple things. July 2nd, we'll be meeting here. It's a public meeting, public input meeting on energy planning for the community. So hope that all of you can attend, 7 p.m. here. Last couple weeks, it's been dry and I've been on vacation a bit, so I haven't had gone around and done the mowing notices like we had earlier. So with the rain, I'll get out tomorrow and we'll have a list go out in the mail Monday, I'm sure. I know there's a couple places that need to be hit. And I also haven't, you noticed I didn't have ordinances this time. We'll have them back for you next time, some ordinances to review. So if any of you have topics that you want me to hit, just let me know.
Last weekend, some of you may have drove down West Street and saw all the hose laying out in the driveway. We did our yearly testing of the hoses. We invited all the other departments in the county in to do it all in one weekend, utilize their muscle and manpower. We've got ours done, Drakesville's done, and Forest is done. Last didn't come in. We're deficient in a few feet of hose, getting that addressed. was a rough night. We worked from 4 till 11:30 Friday night, 8 till about 5:30 on Saturday, then 8 till about noon, we were washed out. The other thing you'll be noticing down there, you'll see a new truck sitting at the fire station. Township trustees, we put in a sealed bid on a new tanker pumper from Halo, Iowa. They accepted our bid Saturday morning. We went up Tuesday and got it. She's a sweet truck. It's a 2000 Toyne. The fire department and the trustees realized that probably not gonna be able to afford a new one. A new one would be around $265,000. And we got this one for $87,500. We're gonna have to put about $13,000, $14,000 in parts in it. So we'll have a pretty new truck for around 105,000. So you'll be seeing that driving around. I had one new applicant express interest. He's turned in his application. We're just seeing if he's gonna stay with it and show up for the meetings and the trainings. I visited with the state fire marshal on Friday evening. We worked together at the Speedway, and we've got some ideas he thought were good ideas, trying to build a junior firefighter program within the community where we can start them, maybe they're freshmen year in high school, where they just basically come into class, they're gonna learn knots. They're going through the firefighter 1 and 2 curriculum all 4 years. Their senior year, they will test, both written and practical. And the goal is on senior awards night, to offer them their certificate and their badge for completion. So if they go to school, they'll be a certified fireman. If they move back to Bloomfield, we've got a fireman. It's the right train, so. He thought that was a pretty good idea. So we're just working on a lot of details. Other than that, everything's going good down at the fire station.
Anybody from the council got any updates on meetings or anything?
I didn't make the Main Street meeting, but like Gary said, variation days this weekend, Saturday the 10th. Not supposed to be quite so hot, but.
Yeah, the cooler was at 38 degrees a little bit.
I was in Burlington last weekend and they had steamboat days there. Nobody was there, so.
Go ahead. You didn't skip me.
Oh, she shook her head.
Oh, sorry. I didn't see that back here. She's quiet.
So Chris, one of the ordinances for next time we meet.
Yes.
I had someone want to address like the ATVs and mainly about people have modified the mufflers on these ATVs to make them so loud. The individual wasn't upset about someone riding an ATV, it's just how loud they are. I don't know if we currently have anything like that or.
It'd fall under noise.
Like a noise ordinance or.
We do, I'm not sure about the details of our noise ordinance, I'm sure we have one. But there's also an ATV, I mean, you're not supposed to be driving ATV in town as well, right? Unless it's, their license requirements in order to do that.
That's something that will be addressed with that committee for the police department also. Anybody else from the council got any comments or?
I got one last thing, Dan, I was gonna mention it. I did my first fireworks inspection tonight for both the city and the state fire marshal's office. So they'll be opening tomorrow morning at 10:30 out of the bowling alley. And that's my knowledge, that's the one I've been notified of.
For my comments, I want to thank the fire department for hauling water Sunday. The hog farm that was out of water.
They hauled,
They hauled 20,000 gallon, they had Plasky come help, and Drakesville helped, and they all pulled together on Father's Day to haul water to
the piggies.
Water the pigs, so. I made one phone call and 2 hours later, they was hauling water, so it worked out pretty good. They're gonna make a donation to the fire department plus pay for the, I assume get a bill for the water.
I told them keep track of the number of loads they hauled, I said somebody's gonna pay for it.
So I thought that was pretty good. for our volunteers to take care of that problem.
Shows community involvement.
Yep. So, other than that, I don't think I have anything else. We'll adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I hope you don't.